All right, so we are here with my dear friend, Keeley Hubbard. Hey, Keeley.
Hey, Heather.
I am so glad that we're having this conversation. You and I talk a lot about personality types. Keeley is a badass sales coach and works with women on, high ticket. I'm going to call it high ticket offers. I'm using air quotes here, but she has taken the DISC before. And for those of you who don't know, the DISC is just another tool in the tool belt that helps you understand your personality. And what I use it for with my private clients is for communication. And, what is your communication style and how best do you communicate with other types of people out there in the world? And so the type that we're going to be talking about today is our D type, our dominant personality. And I just wanted to kind of prime the pump, if you will, and let people know that our D personalities are very direct. They're decisive. They can be tough in nature. They can be pretty demanding as well, too. They still are considered extroverts. However, they're very task focused. So they want to, conquer the world and they move on to the next thing pretty quickly is what they really want to do. Their biggest fear is that they don't want to lose control. And so that's probably why they're just so task oriented as well. They want to own the room. They have a larger than life presence for sure. But they do just want to touch on the high points, and they're not going to overuse emotion. In fact, some of them don't use emotion at all for that matter. They just want to conquer and move on. That's really the name of the game when it comes to a D type personality. And so, in my world, when you're marketing and you're messaging to a D type personality, what are the things that we need to do as marketers? Because if you have a business, you're in marketing, right? You're selling who you are to the world and the products and services that you have to offer. And so when you're talking to these D personalities, let me tell you, I think I've said it a million times, bullet points are where it's at. And they don't want to talk about your children. They don't want to talk about what you had for dinner last night. They want to make the decision and move on. So I think I've primed it enough, Keeley. But what I wanted to kind of start off this conversation with you is strengths and weaknesses, or I'm going to call it opportunities for improvement, really. But when you took the DISC profile, however many years ago it was, and you found out, hey, I'm a D type. First, tell me, okay, how did that land with you? And then I want you to talk about the strengths, how being a D, what are the strengths of that as your personality type? And what are those areas that, because now that you know who you are and the type of personality that you have, we can do some levels of self-awareness and, some understanding of who we are and how we can improve with other people as well, too. So Those are my questions. Tell me the aha moment, and then let's talk about the strengths and opportunities for improvement with that personality type as well.
Yeah, I took it back in 2010. And my sales coach had me take it, and it was because I was losing a lot of sales with the conscientious personality type, which is that engineer, very detailed, takes a lot of time to make decisions. And obviously being in commission only sales in a, high pressure environment with a business with very small profit margins, family business at the time, I knew I had to figure it out. Like, why can I not sell the engineer? And so I took DISC, and my sales coach had a very, very heart to heart with me, but in the way that you would with the dominant personality type. He said, Keeley, you're going to read through this and you're probably going to come to a lot of conclusions, but what I'm going to tell you, the biggest, opportunity for improvement or your biggest weakness is you can come across like an a-hole. And I was like, what are you talking about?
I am not.
Right. And so I was laughing because I was reading through it and I was like, I don't think that this is me. And he goes, just give it to your family and we'll talk about it next week. Show it to your family.
Give it to your family?
Yep.
Oh, Lord have mercy.
Give it to your family and tell me what they say. And we'll talk about it next week. And that was a big mistake. Print out of it. And I gave it to my family and they were like, oh my gosh, did you read this part? And they were like pointing at stuff like she does that all the time. And she's so this. They had nicknamed me in the family business, 2 nicknames, Pitbull and Tiger Shark.
Wow.
Yeah, because that was my right. I don't wear those as a badge of honor anymore, but that was my approach in communication. And I remember even my sales coach was listening to some of my recorded sales calls and he was like, Keeley, you are attacking people in your conversations. I'm like, what are you talking about? So I learned this and I'm like, okay, I am too aggressive. I am too direct. I do come in I don't soften a dang thing when I'm in conversations. And it was costing me a lot of money. because I was losing the personality types that just looked at me like, what is her deal? Like, why? Because that D is dominant, but the D is the driver, like drive to the end result. So I think that's, it's an advantage, obviously, being a business owner.
Absolutely it is. Yeah.
But you'll just steamroll people if you're not aware of it. And that's what I was doing.
Gosh. That's totally, it's so funny because I am an ID. And so when I took the disc, it's probably been 4 years ago now that I've taken it for the third time in my professional career. And what was it? Probably 10, 15 years ago, it was a middle of the road I, and now it is right in between the line of I and D. And so, and the I is the influencer type personality. They bring a lot of energy, they're extroverts, and that's absolutely me. But it's like the older that I get, my threshold for putting up with, it's like, I've got things to do, people to see, what are you trying to tell me? And let's move on, kind of thing. So It's so funny how that shifts a little bit, as you age as well. And I think that's a good thing, having, again, awareness of the type that you are and being able to grow and go, okay, I'm going to own the tiger shark. Okay. Yeah. And that served me well, and if I soften my approach a little bit, it will also serve me well with other types that get really threatened by that larger than life personality, which a C type and an S type absolutely will be threatened by that,
Yeah. And I think I learned too, like it helped me embrace who I was, but I really recognized why people bothered, like why they irritated me so much. Where I'm like, is something wrong with me? Like this person's driving me insane. And I learned, no, it's just because you're so focused on high level or the bottom line, get to the point, give it to me in bullet points. And they're giving you the smallest minutia of details that your brain is just like, I'm tapped out, get to the point. So yet your patience is thin. And I always thought it was like, is something wrong with me? I'm not a patient person. But it was just, I realized, no, that's just how I process information is like, I don't have a whole lot of room for all the detail.
And I love the idea of giving yourself permission because, your and my types are very similar. And that's what I love about you as well, too. And so Keeley is my person that I call when I'm like, okay, here is this problem that I'm experiencing. These are the options. Which one do you think? Kind of a thing. And for some of my S and C friends, which I do have a few of those as well, too, not as many though. It's really interesting. As I was thinking about people to interview for this series that I'm doing, I was like, okay, I have a few S friends, and my C friends, I had to put out a call for, because I was like, do I even know anybody who's a C? I mean, like a spot on C. And our C people are conscientious. They're very data driven, introverted. And, for somebody like me, that's not going to be the type of person that I hang around all the time. I love those people, but it's not going to be someone that I'm around often. Right.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's so funny. But I love the idea of giving yourself permission to be who you are. And it's how you process information, because it's so true.
I find like nothing's wrong with you. Like, okay, this is who God made me. There's definitely strengths, but there's also weaknesses I need to be aware of so I don't hurt other people in conversations.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Okay. So speaking of that, what is the hardest personality for you to work with, engage with, have a relationship with in general? What is the hardest personality for you to do that with?
When I was in active sales, right, in the family business, I've been in sales for almost 18 years, but looking back, it was the engineer, the conscientious personality type, because they needed so much information to make a decision. But I really got good at it over time from having a sales coach, that I was able to bridge that gap and know what they're looking for. And instead of them, I know they want to dive into the weeds. So I drag them into the weeds early on to get all that information for them to digest so they can make a decision. So I would have told you years ago was that. These days, it's the S personality, the study relator. And I think, the world needs these people, but they just, to me, they come across as like timid, can't make a decision. And I'm always feel like I'm walking on eggshells because I don't want to offend that person. So I really have to be on my toes and soften the way I say things.
Right.
So I really practice doing a lot more listening when I'm working with that person.
Yeah, no, I'm the same way. I think, my biggest challenge with the S-type personalities are the indecisiveness.
Mhm.
And because I do make decisions, I make decisions quickly, but with information. I'm just not going to make a half-baked, decision. I want enough information to where I feel confident and comfortable
Mhm.
that when I pull the trigger, this is the play that we're going to make. And I can't go back and redo the play. Once the play is in
Right.
motion, we're going to finish the play. Right.
Mhm.
But it's like, we have so many decisions to make on a daily basis that if I'm going to call it just checking off the list of all the things that I've got to make decisions about, that gets overwhelming in and of itself and will stymie progress for me
Right.
too. And so, it's so funny. Again, the older that I get, the more I'm kind of like, there are just certain personality types that I struggle with. And if I love you enough, which I know we have a dear friend who's an S, and she's probably listening to this, she's like, so
We
are you
do.
going to love me? Of course I'm going to love
We
you.
love her.
Love her, but it takes some very intentional thought for me to not get frustrated when, things aren't moving quickly,
Yeah.
and so and that's fine. That's how I process information. That's how I go about
Yeah.
doing things. And so, but you're right. It takes some intentionality. It takes some thought, and just having a level of self-awareness. That's what I love about
Yeah.
all these tools, is that it helps with all of that.
I think getting that personality, the S and the C, to speak up, because we could dominate, an I and a D could easily dominate a conversation and just back and forth, back and forth. And it's like a really fast game of ping pong, and they'll never
Right.
jump in because they're probably looking at us like, will they ever shut up? And they just, the D's moving the conversation 90 miles per hour. And the I is just really excited about all of it. And like, they're never going to get a word in if we don't, if we don't learn to listen more. So I've really
So
become
true.
more conscious of that, and not pushing people, because it's kind of like when there's a big decision to be made, my personality is, I don't care if you don't want to do it, freaking jump, right? Like we're skydiving, jump or I'm going to push you, right?
Yeah.
And the S personality is like, well, I need to get comfortable. Let's take a ride in the plane first, and I want to see the area where I'm going to be jumping. And then let me think about it some more. And the C is checking all the screws in the plane and looking at the parachute. There are 3 of them, right? And I'm just like, it's time to jump out of the plane. So
yeah.
realizing they make decisions, they need to process more than I do. And that, there's nothing wrong with them. There's nothing wrong with me. It's just recognizing our differences and finding a way to, you're going to laugh at this, but we associate animals, right? Animals with these personality types. And so I always say, with the lion, or the dominant personality type, when I'm under stress or getting irritated, I turn into Scar from Lion King, which is the black-haired, scary, mean lion. When I need to be more like, Simba and Mufasa, right? Like, be the lion, but don't be Scar.
Right.
That's probably one of the easiest reminders for myself.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. And we all need them. I mean, it's just, I remember my husband telling me, this is several years ago, and he's an accountant. And so being around other accountants, there's a lot of accountants are the C type, of course, right? They need lots of data in order to make decisions. All they do is look at spreadsheets all day long, right? I mean, that's that. An accountant is a C for the most part. Now, I would say for his office in particular, there's some CD mixes as well too. So they might be, very data driven, but they're very outspoken and decisive as well too. Very strong, dominant people. But your C types, I was at some function, event, whatever, and me as an ID mix, and in social settings, I definitely tend to go more I for sure. But we were at this function and with a lot of C's. Okay. And so I'm kind of like, come on, y'all. It is time to like network and talk and let's have a party,
Yeah.
And so I remember being exhausted that evening because I just talked and just was trying to ask questions and trying to get people to talk and that kind of thing. It was exhausting, because you're working with people who are introverts, really.
Yeah.
And networking is something that they just freaking hate to do in the first place, but they have to do it because it's, I mean, again, if you're producing income and, business developer work, you've got to talk with people.
Yeah.
And my husband made the comment to me when we were driving home. Because I was talking to him about how exhausted I was with all of the question prompting and that kind of thing. And he goes, and my husband, but he goes, sometimes, Heather, you steal all the oxygen in a room. And if you just allow people time to have time to process, they'll say something. But if you're constantly talking to them, they're going to be like, I'm good. I don't even want to be here in the first place. She's got it, And I was
my gosh. That reminds me of my mom. My mom used to get so upset with me and my dad. We'd be at dinners or with a friend or a new colleague or somebody. And she was like, y'all just made me carry the whole conversation, right? My dad's like, doesn't want to talk anyways. And I'm like, I'll interject if I think something needs to be said, but go for it,
That is hilarious. It is so the eyes with the C's, oh my gosh, it's too much. Okay. So I want to ask you a question. Have you thought about how when you as a D-type personality, when you go to buy, and I'm going to say a big ticket, like not going to the grocery store, like we're talking about, I'm going to buy a couch or I'm going to buy a car or, I'm going to buy a program that could help me in my business or whatever. And you go to make those buying decisions and knowing that our Ds are very, results oriented, give me bite-sized nuggets of information, that kind of a thing. What was the marketing like? Like, give listeners an idea as to what was the marketing like of the product or service that you spent a good chunk of money on? How did they appeal to you? How did the marketing appeal to you of this product or service?
It's so funny because the first example I thought of was a recent coach and program that I purchased. I think it was like $7,000, 6,800, something like that. And for me, that was very just results focused. There's an app. Every day I log in, it tells me what to do, right? Health and fitness. Here's your checklist of what you need to do. I don't have to think about it. I can tell this person's credible. When I got on the phone with them, they answered my questions very quickly. It wasn't like beat around the bush and keep me on the phone forever. It was just answer my questions and I'll make a decision. And so that was the original one that I was going to give you, which obviously I just did. But what came to my mind recently was buying a car. And it's funny because I've bought, the last 4 cars from the same dealership. And they know that I won't talk to anybody else in there except for this guy named Corey, because he knows my personality type. I come in with a list. Here is exactly what I want. If you can do it today, I'll make the decision and buy it. But if not, I'm out of here. So he knows, like, don't beat around the bush. Don't do the whole back and forth. Because the first time I bought a car, it was with some sales guy, and he was, let me go talk to the manager. And I'm like, no, I don't have time for that. I'm not going to be here for 4 hours. Here's what I want. If you can do it, I'll buy it today. So I only work with this guy at the dealership because he respects my time. I can be in and out of there within like 90 minutes. And for buying a car, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
But for what and he knows, like, I start giving him 6 months in advance of me buying a new car. I start telling him, hey, be on the lookout. Here's what I want. So, because I know when I come in, we need to be in and out of here in 90 minutes, docs, everything, keys, driving out. So it's funny because he knows my personality type that I will get so frustrated if you put me with somebody that's giving me the runaround and all these details that I don't care about. I won't buy the car there.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, absolutely. Don't waste my time.
Yeah.
So, okay. So I want to end this session talking about, in your opinion, and I love, I love how, we were just talking about, when products or services of things that you've bought, what did that marketing look like? It was very results focused. You can walk in and Corey knows your list ahead of time and he can provide you that result quickly. So what are the takeaways that we have for someone who's not a D, who, but sells products or services to D-type people? What would your advice be to them when it comes to their marketing and messaging, when it comes to, messaging to a dominant D personality?
I mean, I think it's what always goes through my head is get to the point.
Get to the
point.
So
when you're calling that type of a client or having that conversation with that type of a client, you don't need to ask them how their week's going and try to develop this rapport, which is fake anyways. You and I both know, I've been teaching that for a long time. This rapport building is not real rapport. But if you're meeting with that type of a person, I would simply start the meeting out with, hey, I know you're busy. I'm pretty busy myself. What do you want to make sure we check off in this meeting to make this worth your time? Like just get to the point, right? And that will make them feel like, okay, they won't feel like they're not in control. Because when they feel like they're in control, you're going to get a great result from that person. Yeah. So if they can give you their bullet points ahead of time of what they want to discuss, and you can just literally call them up and say, hey, can you send me this? Yes. Awesome. Bye.
Yeah.
You don't need to be like, oh, have a great week. And how's your child doing? You don't need to do all that with them. So cut the small talk. They don't care. And it bothers them anyways.
Oh, absolutely.
I think don't frustrate their desire to take action. So when that person, I see this a lot in sales conversations when I train business owners, that they're like, well, wait, you don't understand this part about the product. That person does not care. When they're ready to make a decision and say yes,
it's game on.
Let them buy from you. Let them buy from you, make it as easy as possible, and train them that every time they talk to you, you are quick, to the point, direct, jump off the phone, because they're more likely to pick up the phone when you call again if they know you're going to respect their time and get to the point.
Oh, absolutely. Couldn't agree more. Okay. And so what do you tell the business owner who is sitting here listening going, well, how do I know? Like if the person that walks in or calls me up or direct messages me on LinkedIn or whatever, how do I know if they're going to be a D-type personality? What would you say to that?
I think your D's and your I's are probably the easiest to identify because they're the extroverts. The D's are extroverts. They're just not as friendly. They're just very direct. So if you're like, hey, how's it going? Great. And you're getting those quick and short responses, right? Like I had a question for you. Yep. Got, like if that type of response, it's like, it's a D. If you feel like they're almost rushing you in the conversation, it's because they want you to get to the point.
So good.
That's probably the easiest one. Yeah. A lot of times people think they're extroverts, but they're not working the room in a networking event. That's for sure. They're the type that's just, hanging out, observing, and they'll interject when they feel the need to. And when they do, it's not going to be, well, I know there's varying opinions here. It's just going to be like, here's what I think, and that's what it is. That's the end of the story.
So that's why D's need some good I friends, because you're extroverted too. If you got a buddy who is like the networker, who's the connector person, it makes life a heck of a lot easier.
This is why we're friends.
Sure. That's why we're friends. Yeah.
Because I feel like the lion is also the loner, the D can be the loner because they're not the one to go out and network. They'll definitely talk to people when the opportunity presents itself, but they're not working the room.
Yeah, so true. Keeley, thank you so much for joining me and talking to me about this. You were the first D that I thought of.
Thanks, Heather.
No, I appreciate your time. And so tell us, where can people find you on the interwebs and metaverse or whatever? Where can people find you if they want to connect?
I mean, every social media platforms under Keeley Hubbard, and my first and last name, KeeleyHubbard.com.
Got it. All right. Thank you so much. And we'll talk soon. Okay.
Thanks, Heather.